Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to the alpha for Warhammer 40k Dark Heresy. As today we begin our concerted push towards the end. Or at least the end of the alpha, since obviously, as chunky as this is just a mere fragment of the final planned campaign. Roughly half of Act 1 of a 3-act structure, I think? Plus prologue, which we didn't get to play. So yeah, still shorter than Rogue Trader by a pretty large margin, but also still feels like it's going to be pretty substantial. That said, the investigation goes on. We've got a pretty serious lead in the running, so let's chase it down. Ooh, book event. First one I think we've seen. Inquisitorial Report, Row Delta 51. Location, Scintilla. Hive Sibelis, Marisportum Sectoris Habzone. Servo Augur Pict recording transcribed by Otmar Allenstag. Bastion Serpentis Archivist. Maintenance chambers, pumping stations, and utility pipes are noted surrounding the Servo Ossuarium. The Acolytes team lies in ambush, watching the slow-moving throng of low-level denizens from an abandoned structure. The suspect, hereafter the subject, Archivist note, is approaching from the residential sections. External description: tattered work clothes, superficial lacerations, a large chemical burn to the face. The subject hesitates, glances around, and appears noticeably agitated. He abruptly breaks into flight and attempts to flee. Acolyte follows him. The pursuit is obstructed by local inhabitants who have formed a crowd in a narrow passageway. Visual contact with the subject has been lost. Acolyte decides to track the subject by following physical traces. Acolyte demonstrates skills befitting an Acolyte status and analyzes the subject's route based on indirect evidence. The group resumes the pursuit and discovers traces of the subject in a passage concealed behind a sheet of plasteel. The group proceeds through technical structures and utility pipes. The picked recording shows industrial vats repurposed into fermentation distilleries. Acolyte discovers a technical compartment reconfigured into an oratory of the God Emperor. At the base of a hand-sculpted statue lie 8 severed human hands, all left ones. The remaining environmental elements can be characterized as standard for the Hive's lower sectors. To resume the pursuit, the Acolyte decides to take a shortcut through a sealed processing bay with industrial vats. The picked recording shows the team moving through an abandoned industrial zone with vats filled with viscous, bubbling liquid. Acolyte efficiently covers the distance by moving along the edges of the containers. The Acolyte's decision allows the group to emerge from the technical compartments and re-establish visual contact with the subject. Acolyte picks up the trail. Ahead, the upper levels of rock-hewn habitats integrated into the Hab Zone's technical systems flash into view. To cover the final stretch of the path, the Acolyte decides to fire a shot into the subject's leg. The Acolyte fires a shot and effectively reduces the target's mobility. The subject loses his balance and is distracted by tending to his wound, allowing the group to close the distance. The picked recording displays the upper levels of the settlement Marisportum. Exhaust aggregates converted into habitation modules and rock-hewn dwellings, supplemented by pedestrian suspension walkways. The elevation of the upper levels suggests a prolonged and systematic expansion by the rabble into the Hab Zone's technical tunnels. The group closes in on the subject. Support cables for the gangways flash across the picked frame. The pursuit escalates into a full-scale chase. The subject is within close range, and the Acolyte leaps onto the subject's back to immobilize him. Acolyte makes contact with the target. Having suppressed resistance through physical force, the Acolyte restrains the subject's hands. The picked recording documents the subject being escorted toward one of the technical towers. The frame captures denizens of the Hab Zone who witness the pursuit. Most scatter or make efforts to avoid visual contact. Together with the subject, the team reaches a blind spot in the upper town. Acolyte demonstrates professionalism while escorting the subject to the interrogation site. The individual under escort attempts to initiate conversation with the Inquisition agents, but is met with refusal. Finally, the Acolyte verifies the absence of surveillance and proceeds to interrogate the subject. Nice. Always good to have healthy pursuits. At last, you manage to take a closer look at the runaway. Red stains spread across his shirt and trousers from abrasions earned in the chase. Also a gunshot. His face, burned and lumpen, resembles a mass of melted fat. He, in turn, studies you with equal intensity. His gaze lingers on the sigil peeking out from beneath your garments, and his whole frame tenses. You found me. I have nowhere else to run. Do what you must. A fine chase, Advaka. I will gladly take your strands. They will make me swifter. The Kroot swallows in anticipation, her gaze fixed on the gasping man. We'll put a pin in that, maybe. I'm Echo Light. What's your name? I don't have a name anymore. What do you want? You didn't chase me across all of Merisportum just to chat, did you? Well, I certainly didn't do it to kill you, but, the day's still young. I just had some questions. If he feels surprise, none of it shows on his disfigured face. His bright blue eyes fix on you with a look of desperate defiance. I don't think I have a choice. Smart lad. You might live through this after all. What happened to your face? Same thing that happened to your name? I have no face, Master, and I like it that way. No one looks for me. No one recognizes me. No one gives a second thought to another wretched freak. He runs a trembling hand over his cheek, which resembles melted wax, his nails biting into the seared flesh with loathing. A stark denial of his own words. The pattern of scar tissue layered across the skin indicates prolonged exposure to an acidic environment. Tell me, my good man, how many times did you douse your own face with acid to produce such an effect? The man flinches, lowering his eyes, and speaks in a near whisper. 4 times, to be certain no one would ever recognize me. Well, if it's any consolation, I didn't. The Baron sold you out. He said you might know something about the Flock of Repentance, that they might have something to do with the workers who went missing from the excavation site. The missing workers and the Flock? He blinks, surprised, then lets out a bitter little laugh. So you really weren't going to kill me? Though nothing's stopping you from killing me after the interrogation. That's how the Inquisition works. Oh, is it? And you're saying that from experience? How would a random underhiver know that? I've heard stories. He turns his eyes aside, avoiding your gaze. I'm sure you have. Well, the main story I'm interested in hearing is about Confessor Ursimus. What do you know? He shudders visibly. Confessor Ursimus. He is a preacher, a monster. Words fall short of him. He will listen to your sorrows, grant you hope, and then drive a blade into your back and twist it a few times. It's dangerous to listen to him, but he's impossible to ignore. He thinks himself the equal of a saint, but he would never admit it. But you don't want to hear those truths, do you? You would dismiss them as a madman's tale. The truth is this. Confessor Ursimus was not the same after his return from the Solenza Sectoris. Do you know this place? It's not far from here. There was a massacre, and they burned it down because of it. Ursimus's scars. He almost tenderly brushes his burned cheek. He brought them back from there. And then founded the Flock of Repentance. What can you tell me about them? They are the people who lost everything in the First Flood, and who now dread the water's return. For now they are few, but grief and the sermons of Confessor Ursimus draw in more and more. When someone is lashed with a red-hot rod, it is better to stand on the side that holds the handle. The flock is devoted to Confessor Ursimus. The followers do as he commands. Most often it is self-mortification or the torment of another. That is how they repent. His hand strays involuntarily toward his disfigured cheek, only to be snatched back in haste. The flock believes every woe of Merisportum is his punishment. They do not promise salvation, but they preach submission. Now I see fanatics, intoxicated by their own self-righteousness. His hand drifts toward his other forearm. With a visible struggle, he forces his fingers to unclench, tugging his sleeve lower, but not before you catch sight of deep gouges scored by his own nails in the filthy flesh. Those who serve faithfully are granted ascension by Confessor Ursimus. Those who fear pain or will not inflict it on others, he sends to his sanctuary for re-education. The sanctuary? And where is that? He shakes his head. I don't know. Like the others, I thought it was merely a name for the tunnels where the flock dwells. Yet those led away for ascension or re-education were never seen again. The sanctuary lies deeper, not within the tunnels. The serial killer's lair near the swamp, perhaps? You said Ursimus betrayed you. The cult already seems pretty bad. What could he have possibly done to, actually drive you away? He buries his face in his hands. The silence stretches on, and when at last he speaks again, you notice wet tracks cutting through the filth on his scarred features. Confessor Ursimus must have sensed my faith was weak. He promised me ascension, deliverance for the chosen, but he had something else in mind. I overheard him speaking with another follower, instructing him to ready the sanctuary for a ritual of penance. He was going to torment me before his flock until I died from the pain. Until I was cleansed. That's what he said, that bastard. The maimed man trembles, whether from fear or fury. Most likely, both. Slightly awkward phrasing. I've got to ask, even ignoring that part, it still sounds pretty horrible. Was your previous life really so bad that it justified joining his cult? Confessor Ursimus performs miracles for his flock. One was healed of a wasting sickness, another of his nightmares. I began to attend the sermons. I wanted to see with my own eyes that the God Emperor had not abandoned us. And I beheld... He buries his face in his hands and whimpers softly. He shakes with a violent tremor. In the cave, high above Merisportum, a multitude of mutilated bodies. I had never seen such a thing. This is his judgment. The Punisher sent by him will come for those who have not washed away their transgressions in their own blood. I followed the Confessor so I would not share their fate. I, and many others. Okay, that's the serial killer's lair. Which isn't the sanctuary? Confessor Ursimus discovered this place on his return from the Silenza Sectoris. The Cradle of the Punishers was the name he gave the cavern. He and his followers sought signs that the Punishers would come, that Merisportum was to be next. I see. Tell me this, do you think Ursimus and his flock are responsible for the missing workers? I fled the flock before the noise of that machine on the outskirts stopped rumbling through the whole hab zone, so I can't be sure. But if the Confessor could have hidden an entire camp of workers anywhere, it would be only in his Sanctuary of Ascensions. Okay, well then it sounds like that's where I'm headed next. Thank you. Wait, on the day I fled the flock, I slipped into the Confessor's chamber and took this. He fishes a cloth pouch from the folds of his garments and withdraws an object resembling a withered finger. His relic. It was very important to him. Ursimus kept saying that this was the key to the tomb of Sibelius the Infallible. Take it, but spare my life in return. My life is worth less than this shriveled finger. Okay, and that is how we open the secret door in the swamp. We had the right idea, just the wrong finger. And I guess, as helpful as this guy has been, we should probably still chat with him about the obvious fact that he's one of the missing workers. If nothing else, it gives us more leverage. I have never set foot in Ursimus' sanctuary, or in the tomb of Saint Sibelius. Yet it seems to me that they may well be the same place. None in Merisportum but the Confessor could hold such a secret and bend it to his purpose. Of course, the locals mutter that there is another way into the tomb, one that has never been found. And I am inclined to believe them. Yeah, as am I, since I've seen it. As for the cradle to the graves you mentioned, I've seen that as well. No sign of Jet Li or DMX, though. Guess they both moved on. You look calm, but I'm not surprised. People like you are unmoved by carnage. Sure. The bodies in the cave. You think any of those might have been our missing workers? No, followers of the flock. Those who believed in the Punishers. After Confessor Ursimus' sermons, they began seeking proof that the Punishers had come to Merisportum. I noticed at least some of them were killed with advanced tech. Teleporters, lightning claws, well beyond anything else found in Merisportum. The work of your Punishers, I take it? Who else could have done such a thing? You saw it. No ordinary man could have... He trails off into silence. He clenches his fists so tightly that his nails pierce the skin. And only then does he finish. This is not something an ordinary man could have done. I mean, you say that, but I did actually find a serial killer hidden in back, behind all the bodies. He was also dead, granted, but still. He also seemed inspired by whatever happened in Silenza Sectoris. Prior to his death by leg wound, I think. Any idea who that might have been? He jerks his gaze up in surprise, only to lower it at once. Confessor Ursimus warned there would be signs. A killer in the cradle of the Punishers. That is no mere coincidence. People fear what is coming. It changes them. It changes us. Okay, well, now I'm worried I might be kind of causing you to relapse, so, let's maybe move on to something else. I did have one more thing I wanted to ask you about. He nods with visible relief. So, obviously, there's one other thing that you're hiding from me. I think we both know what it is. I'll give you a chance to share it before I have to prise it out of you. A bitter smile, like a wound, cuts across the scarred man's surviving cheek. I have no name and no face. I am no one. I have nothing to hide. He quails beneath your steady gaze. His fingers worry at the cloth around his left wrist, and you notice another broad burn. Raw red and white flesh marred with dark flecks of what might have once been a tattoo. Noticing your eyes, he tugs down his sleeve and mutters, "An accident with acid. Clumsy of me." Yeah, you seem to have a lot of clumsy accidents with acid. 4 times on your face, huh? So tell me, why would the Baron spare such a self-destructively clumsy man? I think I amused him. My face, the way I fled. I had nothing to offer in return, yet he agreed to help. He lowers his head slightly, letting his greasy locks fall to hide his ruined features. You notice he deliberately averted his gaze, careful not to betray himself. He may not be lying, but he is certainly withholding the truth. He traded something for the Baron's protection. Uh-huh. You know, I couldn't help but notice you didn't seem all that clumsy when you were running from me. Though, really the bigger question I think is, why did you run from me? You had to know it would make you look suspicious. Clearly you recognized who I am, what I am. So why run? His gaze slips to the sigil showing from beneath your garb. I recognize the symbol. If the Inquisition takes an interest in you, you run, even if you are guilty of nothing. Is that so? Is that a widely held local belief? Because I've got to say, I've talked to several people here, and you're the first one who actually ran. You are a local, right? The wretch keeps his gaze fixed on his own boots, yet his voice is steady. I was raised in the mid-levels. Oh, my friend, and you have just made a grave mistake. You've told me your first actual lie. We both know that you're actually one of Millicent Tillia's workers. I was just waiting to see if you'd come clean. His eyes widen, and you know at once you have struck a nerve. He staggers, reaching for you with a trembling hand, repeating like a mantra. Please, please, don't tell her. She'll kill me. No, worse than that. Please. Well, you just showed yourself to be inherently untrustworthy, but we'll see how the rest of what you told me holds up. So you'll spare my life? For now. Like I said, it depends on how what you told me holds up. But don't leave town. I might still have need of you. Quietly, so your interlocutor does not notice, a peony murmurs. I do not wish to seem unduly troublesome, yet, according to all applicable directives and protocols, we must eliminate such a witness before any potential leaks occur. For several moments, he watches you tensely, expecting a trap, but then forces out the words on a ragged breath. Thank you. If you need anything else, look for me in the upper town. I usually hide deep within the cliff shelters to stay out of the flock's sight. By the old heating pipe. I will not flee. All right. So where the heck are we? Oh, there he is. Oh, okay, yeah, I know where we are. Yeah, we're like, wow, He's hiding out from the flock like a block away from their church. That's a bold move, buddy, but I guess whatever works. Stonehead. And just to double check real quick. Let's see if he has anything else to say. Okay, no. Just keeps the option open to turn him in or execute him entirely, which I don't think we'll do. I mean, I do feel like he was pretty genuine with what he told us. And he did give us the key to the sanctuary. Or at least the door in the swamp, which I assume is the sanctuary. I will say, though, I am curious if you did, in fact, kill him. If you could then have Ra'akti eat his corpse to gain the information you would have otherwise potentially missed. Or if Ra'akti, for that matter, would become faster, as she insisted she might. That would be pretty cool. I mean, I probably still wouldn't do it, but it would be fun if there was a whole hidden Kroot upgrade mechanic. Or just, clue gathering via cannibalism. Enlist the support of Confessor Ursimus. Recommendation. Approach Confessor Ursimus with a request to join the cult. You know what? I think we might skip that. I find him and his cult both really gross, and the less we have to really be exposed to them, the better. I think we'll just go straight to the sanctuary. I mean, look, I'm all for body horror. I like The Thing. But there is a distinct difference between body horror and just straight up torture porn. That's it. I'm gonna go hit up the shops, then we'll find sanctuary. Sister Septima looks up at you as you approach. She fixes Ra'akti with a hard, disapproving look. Her power armor gives off a tense, metallic hiss. What is this, Acolyte? I'd think it was obvious. Kroot mercenary. Don't worry, I've got the paperwork. Openly demonstrating your ties with Xenos is a confession of heresy, Acolyte. My patience is not without limit. Another word, Xenos, and your skull will grace my table. The seriousness of Septima's words is unmistakable. I spare your life only because of the exceptional nature of these events. Now be silent. She didn't say anything. You are struck by a sudden realization. For all her zeal, the Sister of Battle displays unexpected mercy to the Xenos among your number. All your knowledge of the Adeptus Auroritis insists that Septima should have already put both the Xenos and you to death. How very gracious of you, sister. You know, the thought does occur that this might not be out of your own magnanimity, but rather for fear of testing the boundaries of my patron's patience. You've already killed one of Inquisitor Zerb's acolytes and gotten away with it. Afraid to push your luck with number 2? The gaze she bestows upon you is heavy with scorn. Beneath it, a deep, barely checked fury of insulted pride roils like a shadowed sea. True devotion does not know fear and stands apart from the unbelief of defiled souls. Uh-huh. Well, since you're so devoted, perhaps you can tell me a bit about this? I found it during my investigation. You had an interest in the, tomb of St. Sibelius, right? Pretty sure this is related. My calling and service are to fight the enemies of the God Emperor, Acolyte. I revere relics, though I do not know them all by heart. Consult the deaconess sent to the camp and trouble me no further with this matter. Sure, I'll do that. Deaconess? I found this petrified finger during my travels. The man who gave it to me swore up and down it was some sort of holy relic. Septima suggested I ask you about it. Trembling with awe, Invita reverently accepts the desiccated finger from your hands, carefully examining it from all angles. Long ago, I had the fortune of reading about his servants who marked their flesh with such holy symbols. In doing so, they grew closer to the God Emperor and transformed their very flesh into the keys to reliquaries and other sacred vaults. What those keys truly were, the book did not explain. Yet here, in Merisportum, there is but one sufficiently ancient shrine associated with such an old tradition. The tomb of Saint Sibelius. Yeah, that's what I thought. Pretty sure it's full of heretics now. Tried telling your boss, but she didn't really seem all that interested, so guess I'll go take care of it myself. And, since we're already in the area, let's take care of this. Detecting repeated presence of Echo Light. Greetings, layperson. Yeah, good to see you too. Look, I spoke with the local leader, the Baron. He says you've been stripping the tech out of Merisportum. This hab zone has lost its strategic value and has been stripped of its administrative designation. The property of the priesthood of Mars must be returned to the servants of the Omnissiah. Sure, I get that, but you realize that I'm still carrying out an active investigation here, right? And that gets a whole lot harder if you strip the life support systems and everyone ends up dead. Look, I'm not saying you have to give everything back. I just need the vital infrastructure to stay functional. So people can actually survive. Investments of resources in the Forsaken Hab Zone of the Hive City shows a critically reduced efficiency rate, 0.045%. Wasting sacred tech blessings on something that has no future is irrational. Right, but like I said, I've still got active investigations going on. And it sounds an awful lot like you're arguing for why you're justified in sabotaging them. Initially I thought that servo skull I found out at the excavation site might have been planted, but now I'm not so sure. Maybe I should bring this up with my boss. Inquisitor Zerb? I'm sure he can get this all straightened out. The Congregator's Vox system bursts into a tense spineric tirade. Form 21KN, distribution of basic amenities, has been reviewed. Analysis shows that the basic repair unit in question comprises 0.0003% of the total supply of tech blessings. Estimated result of the potential exchange: increased allegiance of the layperson Holy Ordos. Cooperation approved. Great. Guess I won't have to bother him after all. A low hum comes from the guts of the servo congregator, and one of the mechadendrites offers you a weighty package. The proper functioning of the mechanism emergency generator requires 1. Integration of the part anointed with sacred unguents. 2. Performance of a complete cycle of assuagement litanies. The execution of the ritual protocol will raise the sacred machine's operational output to the target range of 75 to 80%. May the Omnissiah show his grace. Yeah, let's hope so. Thanks. And we might as well run this back to the Baron while we're at it, before we get stuck into more cryptic content. Oh, shoot. Okay, so we actually have to install it. Alright, well, I guess we'll do that. Drainage main located near the Hab Zone's gateway. One sec, let me poke around a bit. Also, new clue. Might as well have a peek at that. The former member of the Flock of Repentance is traumatized by the memory of a massacre in the cave above Marisportum, where Confessor Ursimus took him to show him miracles, which was the cradle of the Punisher. Yeah, that tracks. Anyway, one sec. And we're back. Okay, so it took a bit to track this thing down. It is, in fact, near the gate, quote-unquote, which is to say the lift we came down in when we first entered this area. Near the dead Fusilier we pulled buttons off of. Someone has removed the power core from under the housing, instead plastering the machine's innards with technolingua litanies, soaked in sacred unguents. There we go, and let's get this going again. Thank you, Sorrow. Really hope we get a proper tech priest in the final launch. Attention! Maximum available operational capacity under current conditions is 77.6%. Note: attempts to forcibly increase this load will be blocked by automated safety protocols. Hey, fair enough. Falls right into the range we were told. Let's go check in with the Baron. Not sure if this will really get us much of anything, but, you know, might as well. Perhaps we'll get an item. Or some other bit of info that he was previously loath to share. As for the shops, I didn't actually pick up any new gear or anything. I basically just double-checked to make sure we had, like, multi-keys and melt-a-bombs and such. Baron? Well, your lead panned out, so I went ahead and returned the favor. Your emergency generator is back up and running. The Baron raises his eyebrows. What's this I'm hearing? An upper Ivers lifted a finger to help out Marisportum. Somebody pinch me. He barks a laugh. He traces an arch in the air with his glowing glow stick. Fair enough, fair enough. You've just got me by surprise. If you're serious, then thank you, Upper Ivor. You've given some desperate folk the chance to hang on just a little longer. I appreciate the effort. If you want, take a look at what we have in the warehouse. Good work deserves payment. I mean, I've already helped myself, but sure. I'll swing by just in case. I've already told you everything about the excavation, but if you had any other questions, ask away. Yeah? You feeling relaxed enough to tell me which noble house you're working with? Since you put yourself out on behalf of us mere mortals, I'll tell you, but don't make me regret it. All of Marisportum depends on being in House Altair's good books. I supply them with top-class Skirgessum, and those noble masters don't let the Magistratum consign the Hab Zone to the rubbish heap just yet. House Altair, you say? Yeah, okay, so this is definitely for other later parts of the game. Not really something we can resolve here, I think. Do you have any idea what'll happen to Marisportum if any link in this wildly unstable chain of divers, my recipe for Skirgessum, House Altair, breaks? At best, we'll all be servitorized. The alternatives ain't half as rosy. Yeah, I get it. I've got to say, maybe I misjudged you, Baron. I mean, You're obviously still pretty self-serving, but also you are the main thing keeping Merisportum alive. Or at least on life support. But yeah, we also pulled Lucidian Rep, I think. Both positive and negative. Which again speaks towards this being something that can't really be resolved in the current build. Since, as far as I'm aware, there's no other actual Lucidian-like vendors or NPCs in this particular area. The only two shop vendors we have access to right now are for the Church and the Adeptus Mechanicus. Still, though, very interesting glimpse of things beyond the scope of the current alpha. Yeah, even here on the map we can actually see, you've got the second other major area, the spires up on top. That's the other half of Act 1, the other area that we could go to, theoretically before Merisportum or after, with the actual course of events being changed depending on which order you do them in. As we've seen with Merisportum, constantly talking about how great it is that we went there first, before the flooding got any worse. And then, of course, we've also got the Bastion Serpentis over there off-right. I imagine there's stuff to do there as well, so, not a clean 50-50 break between just the Spires and Merisportum. Especially given that there does seem to be an awful lot of other empty space on the map. Lots of room for other major areas, which might be where things like Act 2 and Act 3 take place. I'm actually kind of curious if the bulk of the game will in fact take place on Scintilla. But, I guess we'll find out. That said, this does feel like a good place to call it, since I imagine the Tomb of Sibelius and Confessor Ursimus and all that will be a whole thing. So yeah, we'll hit the pause button for now. I'll do another quick round, make sure there's nothing else obvious that we're missing. And then we'll go close this case. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Bowman, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Lady Shayna, Giemza, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Rowan Church, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.